Do you know how a guy texts when he's actually not into you and is just stringing you along? And if that is happening, how do you figure out if he will ever want things to progress with you? Well, stay right here because in this video, you're going to learn the texting signs to look out for, as well as a powerful phone test that you can use to get the answers you need immediately. Hi there, I'm Dr. Antonio Borrello, and I'm a psychologist and a relationship coach. This channel is all about helping you build great relationships so you can grow happy together. So hit subscribe to get all of our videos and make your love life the best part of your life. Usually when you're texting with a guy, it's easy to know that he's into you because he is texting you often. He's asking you questions, he's responding quickly, and he's trying to make plans to see you. But other times, things are not so clear and you aren't sure if he's into you or if he's just stringing you along without any intention of ever getting into a relationship. So, without further ado, here are the signs to look out for and the instant test that gives you the answers you need. Number 1, his texts are lazy and boring. What does that mean? Well, his texts and responses are very short and you can tell that he isn't putting any effort into writing the messages that he sends to you. For example, rather than respond to a question that you have asked, he simply responds with the letter K or a thumbs up. In other words, he's not even interested in having a good conversation with you, and you feel that he is simply answering out of obligation rather than for communication. Number 2, he doesn't ask you any questions, or he responds to your questions without asking any in return. We ask questions to better know another person. So during a texting conversation, you might ask him what his hobbies are, or you might ask him what his favorite food is. If he likes you, he would give you a response that answers your question, and maybe he'll explain why, and then follow up your question by asking the same in return. For example, a woman might ask, Antonio, what's your favorite Netflix or network series that you've seen? Now, if I'm not into her or I'm not interested, I might respond by saying, oh, I'm not sure, and that's it. Clearly, I'm not interested enough to write a proper response, let alone ask her what her favorite series was. Contrast that with a response I would give if I were very interested in her. Antonio, what's your favorite series? My response? Oh my God, I love Ted Lasso. Have you seen it? It's one of the most heartwarming, inspiring, and optimistic feel-good series ever. It's perfect for getting us through 2020. It's simply amazing. What's your favorite series? And that is true about the Ted Lasso part. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. You need to watch it. You see the difference here? In my response, I wanted to share something that I thought was amazing. I wanted her to think I have good taste. I was trying to score points with her. I asked her if she saw it, and then I explained why it was so good, and I asked her about her favorite series. I was sharing and I was inquiring at the same time. But if I were to have just said, oh, not sure, or Ted Lasso without even asking a follow-up question, it's obvious that I'm not interested in furthering the conversation or sharing my personality or asking about her. I'm clearly not interested. Number 3, he takes hours to respond and sometimes he doesn't even respond at all. All of us are busy at times. I mean, people have work and school and other obligations and can't always be immediately available to respond to your text. So it's okay if he doesn't always respond right away sometimes, but if he consistently takes hours and hours to respond and sometimes not at all, yeah, that's a problem. Some men are not able to respond instantly, but as long as they are consistently answering and even explaining their delay, that's a good thing. Number 4, he never texts you first. This one is such an important one that requires a bit of explanation. You see, as I've talked about in so many of my videos, men have been socialized and conditioned to pursue women that they are interested in. He knows that traditionally he's the one who is going to be asking for your number, asking you out, pursuing and courting you. And texting you first is certainly part of this pursuing process. That makes sense, right? Here's the challenging part. If you are always texting him first, if you are always starting the conversations and rapidly texting back, you might not be giving him the opportunity to text you first. When you step back and stop texting him first, then you will get a great indicator of his interest in you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, in just a moment, I'm going to share my instant texting test that will immediately help you to answer this question. So keep watching because that one is great. Number 5, he has no urgency to see you in person. When a man is interested in a romantic relationship with you, he's going to try to move the friendship from texting to actually meeting you and spending time with you in person. And of course, some men are much more confident and will quickly escalate the conversation and come out and ask you on a date fairly quickly. However, other men might be shy or unsure of how you will respond, so they might not come out and directly ask you on a date. Instead, he might find another excuse to see you in person. Perhaps you mentioned that you just purchased furniture and you hate doing the assembly, so he offers to do it for you. Or maybe he finds out that you're struggling with the class and he offers to tutor you. The point is, he wants to see you and spend time with you, so he will use any excuse he can to make that happen. If he isn't trying to see you in person, or if he vaguely refers to meeting or making plans but then doesn't commit to solid plans, he's probably not interested in pursuing a relationship with you. Number 6, he sends you sexual texts or he asks you for nudes before meeting in person. Let's say you meet a person online or through social media, or perhaps you just met him when you were out. You exchange information and begin to communicate with one another. Now, the goal of a relationship-minded man would be to get to know you and try to take you on a proper date, to court you with the intent of a long-term relationship. Now, if you're communicating and he begins to talk about sexual things, or starts inquiring about sending him provocative photos, he is testing to see what type of woman you are. The wrong thing to do is to continue to engage in that conversation, especially if you want a relationship. Your willingness to engage in a sexually explicit conversation with a person who's basically a stranger lets him know that you are an easy target for a hookup and not relationship worthy.
She belongs to the streets.
Instead, let him know that his conversation is completely inappropriate and you're not looking for a hookup. You need to set an immediate boundary and let him know that if and when he wants to engage in a meaningful conversation, you may agree to talk to him again. When you do that, you are showing him that you respect yourself and you're not an easy target for his hookup. A man that is really interested in knowing you and getting involved with you will immediately apologize and redirect his conversation. On the other hand, if he disappears or ghosts you, then you'll know what his intentions were all along. Number 7, the phone tests. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I'm going to explain how you can immediately gauge his interest in a relationship with you by looking at your phone. I call these the texting tests. Now, if you're watching this video on your phone, keep watching until the end of the video and then you can do the exercises because there are 3 steps and they will take you a few minutes to complete. Or alternatively, you can pause the video and then return to the same spot after you do the first step. So to do this, I want you to get your phone out and open the texting thread that you have with this guy. Once you have the texting thread open, I want you to do 2 things. First, I want you to scroll back in history until you've passed 30 to 40 texts between you and him. For some of you, 30 to 40 texts only represents one day, but for others, it might represent weeks. It all depends on the frequency of your texting communications. Now, for the sake of this example, let's assume that 30 texts takes you back 3 to 4 days. Okay, so then I want you to count both your texts and his texts separately. What do you find? Are you texting each other the same amount? When you're scrolling through a couple days of text, does it appear to be even or close to even? Or do you find that the conversation you're having with him is more one-sided? Are your green or blue texts overwhelming his gray texts? If so, there's a huge imbalance in effort and investment here. And that means that you are putting in way more effort than he is. Okay, take note of the number of texts that you have both completed, then do the second step. The second test? Count the number of text lines that you've written over the past few days and compare that to the number of text lines that he's written over the past few days. It doesn't matter whether you type long paragraphs to one another or if you type just a few short sentences. As long as they are roughly the same number of text lines, you're both putting in a similar level of effort and investment. But if you recognize that you are pouring your heart out and communicating with him and you're only getting 1 or 2 word responses from him, then again, we see more evidence of an imbalance in effort and investment. So write down the number of lines that you both have written. Now, they don't need to be exactly the same, but if you wrote 150 lines and he has only written 15 lines, then we have a problem. And the last test, go back through your text threads one more time and look for times when the conversation ended. I want you to look for the breaks in communication that happened because of sleep or work or other natural breaks, and then see who begins the next conversation. Ideally, both of you are initiating contact with equal frequency. But again, if you are the one who's always starting the day by sending him a good morning text, if you are always starting and restarting the text conversations, then you see another difference in effort and investment. If you are seeing most of these signs in your situation, recognize that this man is probably not prepared for a relationship with you at this time. And don't dismiss the signs. Think about it this way. This is a person who hasn't known you very long. It's just a man that you might have met and went on a few dates with. He doesn't know you or your value. And your value and worth has nothing to do with his perception of you, good or bad. So take back your power and move on to a man who's as interested and excited as you are. Find yourself a guy who treats you like the guys I talk about in this video, or click here to watch the video that YouTube thinks that you'll like. I'll see you in the next video.